verse. Daniel in the lion's den. Darius reorganized his kingdom. He appointed 120 governors to administer all the parts of his realm. Over them were 3 vice regents, one of whom was Daniel. The governors reported to the vice regents, who made sure that everything was in order for the king. But Daniel, brimming with spirit and intelligence, so completely outclassed the other vice regents and governors that the king decided to put him in charge of the whole kingdom. The vice regents and governors got together to find some old scandal or skeleton in Daniel's life that they could use against him, but they couldn't dig up anything. He was totally exemplary and trustworthy. They couldn't find no evidence of negligence or misconduct. So they finally gave up and said, we're never going to find anything against Daniel unless we can scheme up something religious. The vice regents and governors conspired together and then went to the king and said, King Darius, live forever. We've convened your vice regents, governors, and all your leading officials and have agreed that the king should issue the following decree. For the next 30 days, no one is to pray to any god or mortal except you, O king. Anyone who disobeys will be thrown into a lion's den, the lion's den. Issue this decree, O king, and make it unconditional, as it is written in stone, like all the laws of the Medes and Persians. King Darius signed the decree. When Daniel learned that the decree had been signed and posted, he continued to pray just as he'd always done. His house had windows in the upstairs that opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day, he knelt there in prayer, thanking and praising his God. The conspirators came and found him praying, asking God for help. They went straight to the king and reminded him of the royal decree that he had signed. Did you not, they said, sign a decree forbidding anyone to pray to any god or man except you for the next 30 days, and anyone caught doing it will be thrown into the lion's den? Absolutely, said the king, written in stone, like all the laws of the Medes and Persians. Then they said, Daniel, one of the Jewish exiles, ignores you, O king, and defies your decree. 3 times a day he prays. At this, the king was very upset and tried his best to get Daniel out of the fix he put him in. He worked at it the whole day long. But then the conspirators were back. Remember, O king, it's the law of the Medes and Persians that the king's decree can never be changed. The king caved in and ordered Daniel brought and thrown into the lion's den. But he said to Daniel, your God, to whom you are so loyal, is going to get you out of this. A stone slab was placed over the opening of the den. The king sealed the cover with his signet ring and the signet rings of all his nobles, fixing Daniel's fate. The king then went back to his palace. He refused supper. He couldn't sleep. He spent the night fasting. At daybreak, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. As he approached the den, he called out anxiously, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve so loyally, saved you from the lions? O king, live forever, said Daniel. My God has sent his angel who closed the mouths of the lions so that they would not hurt me. I've been found innocent before God and also before you, O king. I've done nothing to harm you. When the king heard these words, he was happy. He ordered Daniel taken up out of the den. When he was hauled up, there wasn't a scratch on him. He had trusted his God. Then the king commanded that the conspirators who informed on Daniel be thrown into the lion's den along with their wives and children. Before they hit the floor, the lions had them in their jaws, tearing them to pieces. King Darius published this proclamation to every race, color, and creed on earth. Peace to you, abundant peace. I decree that Daniel's God shall be worshipped and feared in all parts of my kingdom. He is a living God, world without end. His kingdom never falls. His rule continues eternally. He is a savior and rescuer. He performs astonishing miracles in heaven and on earth. He saved Daniel from the power of the lions. From then on, Daniel was treated well during the reign of Darius and also in the following reign of Cyrus the Persian. Daniel chapter 7, vision of 4 animals. In the first year of the reign of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel had a dream. What he saw as he slept in his bed terrified him, a real nightmare. Then he wrote out his dream. In my dream that night, I saw the 4 winds of heaven whipping up a great storm on the sea. 4 huge animals, each different from the others, ascended out of the sea. The first animal looked like a lion, but it had the wings of an eagle. While I watched, its wings were pulled off. It was then pulled erect so that it was standing on 2 feet like a man. Then a human heart was placed in it. Then I saw a second animal that looked like a bear. It lurched from side to side, holding 3 ribs in its jaws. It was told, attack, devour, fill your belly. Next, I saw another animal. This one looked like a panther. It had 4 bird-like wings on its back. This animal had 4 heads and was made to rule. After that, a 4th animal appeared in my dream. This one was a grisly horror, hideous. It had huge iron teeth. It crunched and swallowed its victims. Anything left over, it trampled to the ground. It was different from the other animals. This one was a real monster. It had 10 horns. As I was staring at the horns and trying to figure out what they meant, another horn sprouted up, a little horn. 3 of the original horns were pulled out to make room for it. There were human eyes in this little horn and a big mouth speaking arrogantly. As I was watching all this, thrones were set up in place. The old one sat down. His robes were white as snow. His hair was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, its wheels blazing. A river of fire poured out of the throne. Thousands upon thousands served him. Tens of thousands attended him. The courtroom was called to order and the books were opened. I kept watching. The little horn was speaking arrogantly. Then as I watched, the monster was killed and its body cremated in a roaring fire. The other animals lived on for a limited time, but they didn't really do anything, had no power to rule. My dream continued. I saw a human form, a son of man, arriving in a whirl of clouds. He came to the old one and was presented to him. He was given power to rule, all the glory of royalty. Everyone, race, color, and creed had to serve him. His rule would be forever, never ending. His kingly rule would never be replaced. But as for me, Daniel, I was disturbed. All these dreams and visions had me agitated. So I went up to one of those standing by and asked him the meaning of all this. And he told me, interpreting the dream for me. These few huge animals, he said, mean that 4 kingdoms will appear on earth, but eventually the holy people of the high God will be given the kingdom and have it ever after, yes, and forever and ever. But I wanted to know more. I was curious about the 4th animal, the one so different from the others. The hideous monster with iron teeth and bronze claws, gulping down what it ripped to pieces and trampling the leftovers into the dirt. And I wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head and the other horn that sprouted up while 3 of the original horns were removed. The new horn had eyes and a big mouth and spoke arrogantly, dominating the other horns. I watched as his horn was making war on God's holy people and getting the best of them. But then the old one intervened and decided things in favor of the people of the high God. In the end, God's people took over the kingdom. The bystander continued telling me this. The 4th animal is a 4th kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from the first 3 kingdoms, a monster kingdom that will chew up everyone in sight and spit them out. The 10 horns are 10 kings, one after another, that will come from this kingdom. But then another king will arrive. He will be different from the earlier kings. He will begin by toppling 3 kings. Then he will blaspheme the high God, persecute the followers of the high God, and try to get rid of sacred worship and moral practice. God's holy people will be persecuted by him for a time, 2 times, and half a time. But when the court comes to order, the horn will be stripped of its power and totally destroyed. Then the royal rule and authority and the glory of all the kingdoms under heaven will be handed over to the people of the high God. Their royal rule will last forever. All the other rulers will serve and obey them. And there it ended. I, Daniel, was in shock. I was like a man who had seen a ghost, but I kept it to myself. Daniel 8, a vision of a ram and a billy goat. In King Belshazzar's 3rd year as a king, another vision came to me, Daniel. This was now the 2nd vision. In the vision, I saw myself in Susa, the capital city of the province of Elam, standing at the Ulai Canal. Looking around, I was surprised to see a ram also standing at the gate. The ram had 2 huge horns, one bigger than the other, but the bigger horn was the last to appear. I watched this ram charge, first west, then north, then south. No beast could stand up to him. He did just as he pleased, strutting as if he were the king of beasts. While I was watching this, wondering what it all meant, I saw a billy goat with an immense horn in the middle of its forehead come up out of the west and fly across the whole country, not once touching the ground. The billy goat approached the double-horned ram that I had earlier seen standing at the gate, and in rage charged it viciously. I watched as mad with rage it charged the ram and hit so hard that it broke off its 2 horns. The ram didn't stand a chance against it. The billy goat knocked the ram to the ground and stomped all over it. Nothing could have saved the ram from the goat. Then the billy goat swelled to an enormous size. At the height of its power, its immense horn broke off, and 4 other big horns sprouted in its place, pointing to the 4 points of the compass. And then from one of these big horns, another horn sprouted. It started small, but then grew to an enormous size, facing south and east toward lovely Palestine. The horn grew tall, reaching to the stars, the heavenly army, and threw some of the stars to the earth and stomped on them. It even dared to challenge the power of God, Prince of the celestial army, and then it threw out daily worship and desecrated the sanctuary. As judgment against their sin, the holy people of God got the same treatment as the daily worship. The horn cast God's truth aside. High-handed, it took over everything and everyone. Then I overheard 2 holy angels talking. One asked, how long is what we see here going to last? The abolishing of daily worship, this devastating judgment against sin, the kicking around of God's holy people in the sanctuary. The other answered, over the course of 2,300 sacrifices, evening and morning, then the sanctuary will be set right again. While I, Daniel, was trying to make sense of what I was seeing, suddenly there was a human-like figure standing before me. Then I heard a man's voice from over by the Ulai Canal calling out, "Gabriel, tell this man what is going on. Explain the vision to him." He came up to me, but when he got close, I became terrified and fell face down on the ground. He said, "Understanding that this vision has to do with the time of the end." As soon as he spoke, I fainted, my face in the dirt, but he picked me up and put me on my feet. And then he continued, "I want to tell you what's going to happen as the judgment days of wrath wind down, for there's going to be an end of all this. The double horned ram you saw stands for the two kings of the Medes and Persians. The billy goat stands for the kingdom of the Greeks. The huge horn in its forehead is the first Greek king. The four horns that sprouted after it was broken off are the four kings that come after him, but without his power. As their kingdoms cool down and rebellions heat up, a king will show up, hard faced, a master trickster. His power will swell enormously. He'll talk big, high-handedly, doing whatever he pleases, knocking off heroes and the holy ones left and right. He'll plot and scheme to make crime flourish, and oh, how well it will flourish. He'll think he's invincible and get rid of anyone who gets in his way. But when he takes on the prince of all princes, he'll be smashed to bits, but not by human hands. The vision of the 2,300 sacrifices eaten in the morning is accurate but confidential. Keep it to the future. It refers to the far future. Keep it to yourself, rather. I, Daniel, walked around in a daze, unwell for days. And I got a grip on myself and went back to work taking care of the king's affairs. But I continued to be upset by the vision. I couldn't make sense of it. This is the word of the Lord.